Hi, my name is Brian, and I'm the HiPop professor. And today, recently PSA just came out with an update to their app, and this app allows you to scan a card, and it will locate it for you, find pop information, find value and sales data, and, you know, it's pretty amazing, honestly. It's pretty amazing after having poked around in there for a little bit. I will admit, I was a little skeptical, and I still remain a little bit skeptical about how good of a job this app can actually do identifying properly and accurately identifying cards, particularly from an era that I tend to enjoy, the 90s, the innovation era, where there were so many parallels that look really similar, that are almost identical. Maybe from the front they are identical. And how well can AI or this program or this app or whatever you want to call it, how well can they actually do identifying this? Like, I'm not sure I would trust most other humans more than myself to identify some of these cards, let alone some AI that just got trained on this stuff. I don't know. So admittedly, my expectations going into this experiment that I decided to run this through, my expectations were rather low, but I decided to go ahead and experiment. And so I did. I went ahead and I picked out 20 Greg Maddux cards from my collection that were either obscure or ones that I thought might trick this and pull up the wrong thing. And like I said, my expectations were pretty low. And to my surprise, it did better than I thought it would. Let's put it that way. And I remain optimistic because, this is the kind of thing that technology tends to just improve and get better and better, with this kind of thing over time. So if it's already this good, which isn't to say it's perfect, but still, we'll give it a little scorecard at the end and see how it did. But yeah, I'd like to turn the camera around, show which cards I decided to throw at it, and we'll keep track of which ones it nailed, which ones it got, and which ones tripped it up, because it's a little bit interesting and not at all what I would have expected sometimes. So let's turn the camera around and take a look at these. Okay, so how did the PSA app do on some of this stuff? Let's take a look. So I tested out 20 cards, and I picked out 20 cards I thought might give this AI a little bit of trouble. And so I started with these two. These are two from Lord of the Diamonds inserts. One of these is from regular Topps, which you can see the logo here just says Topps in the corner, whereas this one is the Topps Chrome Refractor. And so you can see the logo is different. This one says Topps Chrome on the logo, whereas the one below it says just regular Topps. Aside from that, they're both extraordinarily shiny cards. I will say too, the die cut on the top is different. And so the regular Topps has a very, very pointy corner, whereas this one kind of ends on a down die cut on top. So the die cuts aren't the same, but AI can't even figure out how many fingers people are supposed to have. So how are they supposed to figure out how many points are supposed to be on the top of these die cuts anyway? So yeah, I threw these both in there. And of course, with these, they had you photograph the front and photograph the back. And again, with the back, you'll see the word refractor does appear right by the number, LD15, whereas it does not for the regular Topps. So the regular Topps card is not a refractor, even though it's super extraordinarily shiny. And so I was impressed. PSA nailed both of these, and they got them as their number one pick. So when you scan it, it gives a drop-down menu, a list of 3, 4, 5 possible sets to look out for. And so when I say it nailed it, is that it got the exact correct set as its number one pick. So that's what I mean when I say that they nailed it. So good for them. That's great. The second one I tested, it's going to seem a little strange why I tested this one. This is a 93 upper deck. There's really nothing special about it, and I scanned it and it got it, and that's fine. But the reason I tested it was because I also threw a curveball in there at them, and I tested this one, which, is also a 93 upper deck, except this one has the gold hologram. And so if we can get this to show in the light, we have the gold hologram versus the silver hologram. And so the gold holograms were really tough to find because those were only in factory sets. And 1 out of every 15 sealed factory sets, the entire set had a gold hologram stamp. So if you're looking at the Upper Deck Derek Jeter rookies, check the back for those gold holograms. They're way, way scarcer, much higher value, much more demand. And so it got this one, nailed it, and it missed the gold hologram. Now, that being said, it's really subtle, really tiny detail only on the back. I don't blame them for missing it. But although they missed it, it was in the top, I think the third or fourth one down, they mentioned gold hologram. So it wasn't the first choice, but it was there. If you knew it was gold hologram, you'd be able to go ahead and select that from the menu. It just couldn't tell right away. But even still, it's an important distinction to know. And we're going to be looking at some very subtle distinctions in some of these cards here. So here's a beautiful, beautiful Mike Schmidt. Look at this really cool rough cut on the left edge. Look at that. Oh, man. Gorgeous O-Pee-Chee rough cut. And I had to know, are they going to identify this as properly as an O-Pee-Chee? And so I tried it to make sure they got that over the tops, and they nailed it. The back does say O-Pee-Chee, and the front does say O-Pee-Chee. It's not that subtle about it. Certain years are much more subtle about it, but even then, the writing on the back should give it away. And they got it. They nailed it. So good for them. So I decided to throw a few more curveballs their way and see what we could do. The next two I tested out were these two. And again, these cards don't look all that extraordinary. They're 96 Fleer. So what? Well, it turns out neither of these are the base 96 Fleer cards. They're both special in a certain way. And I know you can already tell this one's got the holofoil name. We'll get to that in a second. This one, though, most of these cards should have almost a papery, like sandpaper feel to them. They're very tough to actually to go through a bunch of them in a stack because they stick together. That's how rough the matte finish is on these cards. But this one doesn't have that. And it's also, even though it has the same picture as the regular card, clearly numbering 11 of 20. Something's going on here with this. And so this is actually a team set release. And so I scanned it just to see what it would do with this, and it nailed it. It knew that this was from the team set. It saw the numbering. It brought it right up there. This one, however, is the Tiffany parallel. And so Fleer for 96 and 97, they had a Tiffany parallel. And so again, with the holofoil on there, you can't really tell the cardstock necessarily from a picture. And there's not much of an indication on the back either. It's really just the holofoil name, and it nailed it from just the picture. It knew that was the first recommended set was the Tiffany parallel, which again, really shocked me and amazed me. Okay, so what about some of these other parallels from the mid-90s? And so I tested out a few other ones. So this one's not a Greg-Maddux, but it's 94 Upper Deck Electric Diamond. And, not too surprisingly, this one, having this sparkly indication right there, yes, happy to say they nailed it. They got it right away. And so good for them. It was not as subtle of a parallel. However, I had to try one of these from 95 and 96, these ultra gold medallions. They had some inserts, and of course the parallel of those inserts, the gold medallions that were usually about 10 times as rare as the actual insert itself. So here's a rawhide gold medallion insert for 96 Ultra, and they nailed it. They knew it. They were able to identify that, even though the back is identical. It's exactly the same. So they're doing pretty well in the parallel department. And then I decided, okay, let's crank it up a little bit and let's really test it out and see what they can do. And so I decided to be kind of mean with them, and I decided to try and test out something like this. So by all metrics, this appears to be a 94 Topps Finest card. But Finest had some really interesting, obscure, I don't even want to call them parallels, but just variants of their cards. They had a pre-production sample. They had another one that had a test issue. It was a test peel, because the next year in Finest, in 95, was the first year they had the protective coating you could peel off. They had prototypes done in 94 with the protective peel as well. This is neither of those. This, well, like I said, it appears to be a 94 Finest, except this one is a special one called the Superstar Sampler. And I wanted to see if it could identify a Superstar Sampler because I had my doubts. So what is a Superstar Sampler? A Superstar Sampler was a 3-card promotional cellophane pack. It was a 3-card pack, clear cellophane, where every card in that pack was of the same player. And what Topps did was they would send these to dealers as promos. And the 3-card pack you would have, usually the top card was the finest, 94 finest, and it was showcasing some of the upcoming sets from the 94 season. So they had 94 finest was one of them, 94 Bowman was another one, and 94 Stadium Club was the third one. And so the only difference you can tell on the back is that on the back of this card, there's a little red emblem here, and it says, if we can get it to focus, there it is, Topps Superstar Sampler. And so, yeah, these are really subtle. These were a way, way lower print run than the base cards, although they look like the base cards. They do not exist as refractors. But like I said, I really wanted to try to test this PSA thing, really, put it through the ringer, and it nailed this. It pulled it right up as a Superstar Sampler, and I just have to say, it just kind of knocked the socks off of me. It really impressed me. So, I thought maybe, for sure I could trick it. And then I said, okay, well, fine, but what about this? Yeah, I decided to go ahead and try actually both of these variants. This is from 94 Stadium Club, and let me get the hair off of there. And these are two, well, again, this one's a parallel, and so there was actually a couple parallels in the set. This one's the first day issue. They had these first day production. They started in 93. This is their second year. They renamed it a first day issue. And yeah, this was your standard 1 per box parallel. Pretty tough to get. Throughout the years in the 90s, the first day issues, first day productions, they kind of, vary. They oscillated. They had print runs somewhere between 750 and 2,000. They're not serial numbered, but for that time, that's a pretty rare card. The backs look identical to the regular 94 Stadium Club. So, and again, if they can identify a gold medallion, yeah, they got this no problem. But again, I really wanted to see what would they do with this, because the regular card should have this sort of red foil on the name, and this one's got solid gold. Now, they had a couple things going on aside from that could make a goldish color appear, like on a scan. So they had something that was called, they had a rainbow, golden rainbow, which is not this one. And they also had a subset called Dugout Dirt that has sort of a gold nameplate on there as well. This is neither of those. This is in fact the Superstar Sampler for this Stadium Club set that I had mentioned before. The difference is that the Superstar Sampler logo on the back of this card is not a bright big red stamp. In fact, it is minuscule. It is tiny. And if you can't see it, I don't even blame you, because it's really, really, really small. And so here it is, right there, that little black circle. There it is, Topps Superstar Sampler, and there it is for comparison with, well, the back of what it would look like on a base card, but yeah, it's the first day issue. So are they going to catch that? And I have to say, I tripped them up, and they did not identify this as a Superstar Sampler. So they're 1 for 2 for Superstar Samplers. But still, the fact that so far I only managed to trick this thing with a gold hologram and a rather obscure Superstar Sampler, pretty impressive, gotta say, pretty impressive. All right, speaking of little tiny small stamps, I went ahead and also tested this one out from 96 Stadium Club. While we're on Stadium Club, this beautiful Medalists laser die cut, well, I guess it's not die cut, but it's laser cut card, which is really amazing because you can see his really cool insert set. He's got his face here as laser cuts, and of course the words Medalists are also laser cut through here, and even the seams of the baseballs are also laser cut as well. And the issue of why I wanted to test this one out specifically was because this one happens to be a members only. Speaking of really, really tiny, small stamps that you cannot see, and again, in the right light or the wrong, is less obvious. But it caught it. It saw exactly what it was, nailed it, identified it. So I decided I had to test out the big guns. And so I tried a few other really tricky ones. So here's one from 96 Pinnacle Zenith, and this is the Z team. And this is maybe the trickiest sample. You see the word sample here is right across his body. You can just barely see the E coming above his shoulder. The S is kind of eaten up by the Z team logo. You really almost can't tell. This is a beautiful card. This is like you can see through, it's an acetate, clear acetate, but it's got this beautiful shimmery refractor on there. I mean, it's really, really cool cards. But this is a promotional sample, and because you can't really see it that well, is AI going to catch this? Are they going to miss this? And I don't even know if it's AI, but is the PSA app, is it going to get it? And I tested it out, and they missed it. They did not identify this as the promo. So score 1 for me, trying to trick them. But again, I'm being very mean on purpose with these things. All right. And then we also had to test out a couple other things. I decided to really crank it up. And this is one of the most subtle things. The next ones I wanted to test out were a couple parallels, press proofs from 96 Leaf. Now, 96 Leaf is one of those devious. 96 was a tough year for parallels, like press proofs, and the reason why, they had Leaf Preferred, where the only difference you could tell between the gold, the gold press proof, was a single silver stripe on the front became a gold stripe, and there was no other label, no other indicator you pulled anything interesting or tough or special or anything like that. And so here we go, we have the bronze press proof, and then, which looks pretty much like the base card, except this border is a little more hollow foil, it's a little more shimmery than you would expect it to be. And then to up the ante, here's the gold, which again, to differentiate between the gold and the bronze, if you don't have these two cards like hand in hand, like side by side, it's really tough to tell which one is which. It's a subtle difference in color. It is there, but it is really, really subtle. Really good luck trying to tell them apart if you don't have the other one right there. I mix them up sometimes too, so it's completely understandable. And I have to say, unfortunately, the PSA scanner missed both of these. It did not identify it as even a potential press proof. So, and again, the backs of these, I really don't understand why they wouldn't somewhere on here. Sometimes they're like, hey, 1 of 2,000 or 1 of 500 or whatever they are, which I believe the 2,000 is the print run for the bronze, and I believe 500 is the print run for the gold press proof. But it doesn't actually state that on the back anywhere on either of these. So again, really curious why any company in the mid-90s would want to sort of keep their special hits under wraps, like a secret or something. But I fooled them on both of those, and so that was kind of interesting. And then that got me thinking too, well, if we're testing these sort of parallels, we'd better test some other shiny parallels too. Can they tell the difference between a refractor, let's say, and an X-fractor? And so had to test it out. So here's some 2000 Bowman Chrome, refractor, X-fractor. Now the one nice thing, this one, no matter what light you hit this thing on, you can definitely see the pattern in the background that's different. And of course, the one thing that these have going for them too in the backs is the serial numbering. And so if you can see that one of them is numbered out of 500 and the other one's numbered out of 250, okay, well that sort of is a more clear cut on the back indicator. And I believe they also do say, with a number there, yeah, they do say refractor, and then this one here says X-fractor. I'm going to get that we can get it to focus. There we go. Yeah. And of course, interesting that one's labeled under the number and one's labeled over the number. That's kind of interesting to me. But yes, it got these. And I kind of expected these to get them, but I had to test it, right? This is for science. And the part of the reason why I expected them to get this was because so much of the modern hobby deals with all kinds of parallels. And as many obscure parallels as there are in the 90s, I think numerically there's a greater number of parallels probably in ultra modern, but they tend to follow more of this kind of pattern where they're different refractor patterns or waves or shimmers or mini diamonds or whatever they might be. So I wasn't too surprised that they got that. And I decided to also test out one last refractor variant from this one from 2003. And so here's a 2003 Topps Chrome refractor, and here is the X-fractor. And again, same color. It's not like it's an orange versus a a blue or a black or something like that. It's the same color. So let's test it out here. And I made sure to crop it so that it couldn't see this this encapsulated uncirculated seal that this Topps one is in. Now, of course, on the back it gives it away too because the numbering is different, right? You've got this one out of 699, this one out of 50 that's still in its encapsulation. And yeah, I have to report that it nailed these two. It got these right away. So it's quite good at discerning between and distinguishing between the different refractor patterns, to their credit. And so that's what we have here. So going back through the numbers, of the 20 cards that that we decided to test them with, we only fooled them on the bronze press proof, the gold press proof from 96 Leaf, this obscure sample from 96 Zenith Z-Teams, a specific superstar sampler. I have to locate the Bowman and see what it does with that one. The Bowman is closer to this logo in the back than the finest. And then the gold hologram, which is almost cheating. So I only stumped it 5 out of the 20 times. And so this still means that, 15 out of the 20 times was a success rate. And that's a 75% accuracy. And that's when with cards that I'm, really testing it, really pushing its limits. I was really mean with some of these selections here, which means that for ordinary cards that aren't, all that unique or all that, it's something like an 89 Upper Deck Griffey, it's going to get that right away. And so if it's this good already out of the gate, where it takes something like this, that bodes well for when they improve the technology down the line. The one thing I will say, though, where I am a little bit concerned, is that, this is all well and good if you yourself know what you have. I'm concerned about other situations. Like the other day, I actually did drop off a couple cards at my local GameStop to get graded with PSA. And I will make a video about that whole experience when I get them back. Now, of course, I dropped them off through the GameStop app. There's a tracking on there, and the tracking tells me that they've been shipped, and that's fine. They have not yet been received or checked in by PSA, but I know there's a backlog. But the one thing that concerns me is that when I dropped them off, I did not have to label or identify what card I was sending them. Now, to be fair, I'd never expect a GameStop employee to know more about cards than me. That would be an absurd expectation to put on them. But still, I kind of assumed that, you would have to fill out a form that would sort of detail, here's the year, the set, the player, the card number, the whatever. And that way you sort of know what you're sending them and you're telling them what that is. And that's not what they did. They laid the cards out. They took a picture on the front with an iPad. They flipped them over. They put a sticker on the back. They took a picture of the back. They put them in a bag and shipped them off. And they're just going to let PSA decide on that. Because, PSA has never once mislabeled a card on their flip, right? Anyway, so I don't know if you're a 19-year-old kid grading at PSA and you were, born after the year 2000 and you've never seen a 96 Leaf press proof, would you know, if you just got one of these, would you know that this was the gold and not the bronze? I mean, I don't know. These are questions, right? So regardless of whether AI can get it or their app can get it, I'm not sure how good of an idea it is to just have them, just send us your card, we'll label it for you. It's like, okay, I hope you get it right, because, you're paying to fix it if and when you mess it up. So, okay. Well, anyway, thanks for bearing with me, coming along with me for my experiment. Hopefully this was a little bit helpful, entertaining, and hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.